U.S. Army, and then retitled The Army Goes Rolling Along. Pershing Zone carries on its century-old legacy, playing a march that brings pride to every soldier. The Army Song. The 3rd Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Army. Established back in 1784, the unit was dubbed the Old Guard by Major General Winfield Scott during a victory parade in Mexico City after the Mexican War. It is the U.S. Army's official ceremonial unit and presidential escort, conducting year-round tactical training to ensure the highest the United States of America. Before radios and field phones, sound was the signal. In the Continental Army, fifes and drums carried commands across the chaos of battle, telling soldiers when to advance, when to retreat, eat, even when to rest. That legacy actually lives on today with the U.S. Army Fife and Drum Corps, part of the 3rd Infantry Regiment known as the Old Guard. Founded back in 1960, they're the only unit of their kind in the armed forces. Performing in uniforms patterned after those worn by General Washington's musicians. Playing period instruments with patriotic precision, they bring history to life, sharing the sound and spirit of the Revolution through more than 500 performances each year, both at home and around the world too. The Old Guard, Fife and Drum Corps, everybody. Fort Sumter in 1860, a brand new military decoration, the Medal of Honor. With independence won, our nation's westward expansion began. The Army moved in step, guarding settlers as Native Scouts lit the way. Immigrants joined the cause, and the Buffalo Soldiers etched a legacy of grit and honor across the American frontier. As they march by, a soldier's uniform signals their duty, their role, and their readiness. And by the late 1850s, official regulations outlined distinct looks, shaping the Army's identity and function across the force. Soldiers were issued 2 coats. One, a short sack coat for work and battle, with brass buttons and colored trim that marked their rank. Well, by war's end, that rugged sack coat From Port Cavazos, Texas, home of legends, the 1st Cavalry Division rides with pride. Born from the thunder of horse cavalry traditions of the Civil War, the 1st team forged its reputation on the front lines of history. They stormed Manila with the flying column, charged into Pyongyang as the first to breach the line and face the brutal crucible of Ia Drang, the first of 13 named campaigns in Vietnam where they proved their mettle. Today, that same warrior spirit lives on. You'll know the name, and you'll know them by their iconic cav hats, elite soldiers, and cutting-edge equipment. Tough, fit, fearless. The 1st Cavalry Division is a lethal, disciplined force that stands ready to fight and win anywhere, anytime. And the legacy rides miles in 62 grueling days across the Lincoln Highway. And remember, no pavement, no GPS, and no power steering. Just grit, determination, and the drive to push Army mobility into the future. This car literally helped pave the way for the roads we rely on today and reminds us when the Army moves, the nation follows. The 1918 Dodge Touring Car. Headquartered in New York, this is the 42nd Infantry Division Band. At the start of World War I, the 42nd Infantry Division was formed with troops from 27 National Guard units, stretching across the country like a rainbow. Composed of skilled musicians from all walks of life and professional occupations, they perform a variety of musical genres. Though their mission is primarily a musical one, the members were ordered into active federal service back in 2004 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. The band has also served in support of numerous state active duty missions, including cleanup efforts following Hurricane Sandy, distribution support during COVID-19, and recently, support for New York State Corrections. Commanded by Chief Warrant Officer 2, Ethan Wagner, and led by Drum Major Sergeant First Class Drew Gans, The band is performing Over There, written in 1917 by Broadway composer and recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal, George M. Cohan. Representing the World War I era is the 82nd Airborne Division, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You'll notice the unit is wearing replica World War I uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. When the Americans entered the Great War, our soldiers, under the command of General Blackjack Pershing, hit the trenches in the new standard. It was the olive drab winter service uniform. Now on their heads you'll see a steel helmet with sand-textured paint built to deflect deadly shrapnel from above. Not bulletproof, but battle tough. Nicknamed the Pershing boot, on their feet was the M918, 1918 French boot. It was designed to survive the brutal grind of trench warfare. And on their backs, the field pack, rations, ammo, first aid, and a gas mask. Everything a doughboy needed to fight and to win. Incidentally, the 42nd Infantry Division was deployed to heavy combat abroad and then deployed again in World War II, ultimately liberating the dock. Thundering into view, the pride of Fort Sill, the U.S. Army Artillery Half Section. This is literally powered by horsepower and heritage. This elite ceremonial unit honors the legacy of the Army's horse-drawn artillery. With precision, discipline, and 6 majestic horses pulling a vintage 1918 caisson, the half section keeps tradition alive and rolling strong. Representing the power, pride, and precision of America's field artillery, this is Fort Sill's finest, ladies and gentlemen.
On to World War II, we're seeing more troops in period uniform. We just saw some aircraft fly overhead, some very notable aircraft in military history.
We just saw 2 P-51 Mustangs and 1 B-25 Mitchell fly over. The P-51 really was a game changer for the U.S. Army Air Forces in escorting bombers safely to target. And the B-25 Mitchell, of course, was made famous by the Doolittle raid when they basically stripped this bomber down to its bare bones and were able to launch it off of the Hornet to strike on Tokyo.
That's amazing.
Command Sergeant Major, all over the place. Some of them still look kind of similar in a way to what we might have seen then, but not quite the same. You see the Commander-in-Chief standing and saluting as we see soldiers from both the 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 82nd Airborne out of Fort Bragg, representing these soldiers from World War II.
And really, this is home for you with your more than 20 years serving in the 75th Ranger Regiment. Talk about these 2 storied units, the 82nd and the 101st, and what it's meant to you to go back to Normandy, to see the cliffs that those men scaled, to be part of that unit.
Oh, those 2 units were crucial to seizing several towns. The 2nd Ranger Battalion was the main one. The 3 companies, D, E, and F, that were tasked to climb Point du Hoc, which is a key terrain that could actually destroy anyone coming into Omaha and Utah Beach. 100-foot cliffs, 225 Rangers were tasked with one of the hardest missions of the invasion, and they managed to get to the top. Now, 90 were able to continue to fight, but it was a critical battle in seizing Normandy Beach.
So only 90 made it of the 225 that scaled those cliffs?
And that is correct.
Wow.
Best known for their bravery on D-Day, when 12,000 parachute and glider troops destroyed German supply lines after fighting for 33 days straight. The 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, traces its lineage back to 1918 when it first established as the 101st Division. Known for their ability to rapidly deploy across the world, the unit has held a crucial role in operations since its inception. From parachuting behind enemy lines on D-Day to leading helicopter assaults in Vietnam, the 101st redefined modern warfare. In the 50s, the Screaming Eagles stood tall at home, protecting the Little Rock Nine during the fight for civil rights. In recent decades, they've been sent across the world with stints as far as the Middle East, where they took part in Operation Desert Storm and participated extensively in the war on terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Screaming Eagles continue to lead the way as tomorrow's division in today's Army.
Seeing some vintage World War II armor now, riding along Constitution Avenue. Sergeant Major, tell us what we're seeing.
Yes, sir. We're looking at the Sherman tanks right now, and they were extremely useful against German, much bigger tanks. They were very reliable, very maneuverable, five-man crew, and they wreaked havoc across the German armor formations.
More than 50,000 of them were produced in the war.
Perhaps the best known of the tanks the Army has produced for a long, long time until that M1 Abrams that we'll be seeing.
We'll be seeing that one a little bit
later. And I can see that smile in your face when we mentioned the Abrams. World War II being celebrated on Constitution Avenue. We'll keep watching. And the remembrance of the Korean War coming up next.
Wherever it rolls. The U.S. Army Transportation Corps motto states, "Nothing happens until something moves." That was never more true than with this. Look at this, the 2.5-ton Chevrolet Deuce and a half. 10,000 pounds of cargo and was the backbone of the Red Ball Express that kept the Allies supplied after D-Day in World War II. Was signed 2 years later in 1953. Combat consisted of small attacks, raids, and patrolling. During this war, the United States deployed approximately 6.8 million military forces to the Korean Peninsula. Replacing the famed World War II Jeep back in 1961. Officially named the Military Utility Tactical Truck, or MUT, most servicemen generally referred to it as a Jeep. The vehicle spanned more than 40 years in 4 manufacturers and were everywhere that the Army was deployed. Another rolled by earlier, and at 2.5 tons, this Deuce and a half, the M35A2 classic military transport truck, was a mainstay of the U.S. Army for decades, particularly during the Vietnam War and Operation Iraqi Freedom. The Deuce and a half proved its value moving cargo, supplies, and soldiers. Its capabilities include up to 5,000 pounds off-road and 10,000 pounds on-road, making it ideal for moving just about anything. The 1st Cavalry Division Band, based out of Fort Cavazos, Texas, has played a vital role in U.S. military history. Since its origins back in 1855 as the band of the 2nd Cavalry, it has supported operations from the Civil War to Desert Storm. Over time, it's evolved into a powerful force using music to strengthen bonds between soldiers and engage with communities. From World War II in Korea to the Vietnam War in Bosnia, the 1st Teen Band has enhanced morale and upheld the division's enduring legacy. Today, the band continues its mission using music to shape perceptions, foster trust, and promote national army and division interests. Standing ready to serve, it remains an enduring symbol of the 1st Cavalry Division's legacy and commitment to duty. The band performs Hit the Leather and Ride, a march composed by Captain Robert Meredith Wilson. This piece reflects the cavalry's transition from horses to mechanized warfare, capturing the speed, the resilience, and the tradition of the division. From Court Cavazo, Texas, everybody, the 1st Cavalry Division Band. The U.S. Army deployed large numbers of troops in support of the Vietnam War. The first contingent of U.S. Army advisors arrived in Vietnam in the late 1950s, and that quickly grew to a small team of around 100 soldiers, which then expanded to more than 600 over the next decade. As the war intensified, troops' numbers quickly grew as the war between the South Vietnamese government and the communist insurgents supported by North Vietnam intensified. By January 1969, more than 364,200 soldiers organized around 7 divisions and 20 separate combat brigades. The United States began withdrawing its forces in July of 1969, and the last Army combat unit left South Vietnam in August of 71. The last U.S. combat soldier came home March 1973, while a small number of non-combat personnel remained until April 1975. Representing the Vietnam War era is the 101st Airborne Division based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The unit is wearing replica Vietnam War uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. Blistering heat, thick humidity, and unforgiving terrain demanded uniform innovation, and the Army, they delivered. New lightweight uniforms were constructed to move with the soldier. The M16 replaced the M1 Garand, calling for redesigned ammo gear and faster reloads in combat. Body armor got smarter, jackets and trousers got lighter, and field equipment was reimagined to meet the mission head-on. Gone were the heavy Mickey Mouse boots, replaced by canvas tropical combat boots that offered better grip, faster drying, and all-day endurance. Special thanks to our sponsor, Oracle. Operation Desert Shield. By the fall, more than 750,000 troops comprising U.S. service members and coalition partners from more than 30 countries had assembled in the Saudi Arabian desert. In mid-January 1991, the U.S.-led coalition began Operation Desert Storm, which kicked off with an intensive air campaign designed to knock out key Iraqi infrastructure and weaken Iraqi forces. The ground offensive was launched in early 1991, where military forces overwhelmingly destroyed enemy tanks and vehicles. After only 100 hours of ground combat, coalition troops liberated Kuwait, and the Gulf War ended with Iraq's surrender. From Fort Riley, Kansas, this is the 1st Infantry Division, one of the Army's most storied divisions. Nicknamed the Big Red One because of the distinctive red on their unit patch. As the oldest continuously serving division in the U.S. Army, the unit has participated in every major operation since World War I, living up to its motto, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. The 1st Infantry Division was originally established as the 1st Expeditionary Division in 1917 and spearheaded the American Expeditionary Forces in France during World War I. In World War II, Fighting First stormed Omaha Beach on D-Day and liberated Nazi concentration camps. The highly decorated unit has had 37 members of the Big Red One awarded the Medal of Honor. In Washington, D.C., the 1st Division Monument stands in President's Park, memorializing those who died while serving in the 1st Infantry Division. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the Big Red One, the 1st Infantry Division. More military rolling stock. During Operation Desert Storm, the M2 Bradley fighting vehicle proved its value on the battlefield. It is fast, it is tough, and it is lethal. Named for General Omar Bradley, a leader from West Point's famed class of 1916, the Bradley was built to carry troops into combat with protection and power. Armed with a 25mm chain-driven cannon and twin-tube launched optically tacked wire-guided missiles, it played a critical role in clearing the way during the ground assault into Iraq. While the Paladin looks and sounds like a tank, it is technically a self-propelled howitzer and was first introduced back in the 1960s. Over the years, it's been upgraded to perform in versatile battlefields from Vietnam to the Soviet Union to Iraq.
The armor here.
Sure. Let me know when it's...
Gulf War now being celebrated on Constitution Avenue, along with all the armor that helped play such a key role in that essentially 100-hour battle.
Talk to me a little bit about the 73 East Indies War, because that was led by a young captain, then H.R. McMaster, and they were vastly outnumbered by Iraqi tanks and managed to just outmaneuver.
You're right. It's one of the fastest wars. First used 1991, Operation Desert Storm, as you mentioned. It was fast, reliable, lethal, but most importantly, it was survivable. The Bradley tank is operated, by four, as a four-man crew right now, and is renowned for its 120 millimeter cannon. It also has a 50 caliber machine gun that's mounted, as well as a 240 millimeter machine gun that just causes havoc anywhere it goes. And I've had the pleasure of actually sitting inside of one and actually firing on the range because one of my combat brigades had one, and then I tell you, it's a phenomenal sight to actually see them going down the street right now.
What does it feel like inside? Is it shaking when it fires? How are your eardrums? What does it feel like?
So personally, Betty, steady. You got to protect yourself just like anything else. You have those helmets to protect your hearing, but the gunners, and it's just the crew drill that happens inside there. The communication has to be locked in step for that gun to actually be as accurate as it can be as it identifies the enemy. It is great.
And then we've also seen a lot of towed artillery, notably howitzers of different types. And I was just wondering if we could talk just briefly about, what makes a system a howitzer? What is towed artillery?
So we saw a couple different artillery pieces. The first one we saw was the Paladin. It looked like a tank. It sounds like a tank. It has the armor of a tank, but it's not quite a tank. It's a Paladin. It shoots 155 rounds. Equivalent to that is actually towed is the 777s. We haven't seen them yet, but we have seen the 105s, and those are towed by Humvees, as you saw. You'll see them all over combat brigades. They're the fastest way to get indirect fire to support your troops on the ground, and incredible range, multiple different types of rounds, and we've seen them really throughout the GWOT and before that as well.
And something fun about the Abrams tanks, for weeks and weeks, the city has been concerned about what sort of damage these tanks would do to DC's roads. The Army spent $3 million on plating and on preparing the roads, and actually had soldiers at Fort Cavazos take an Abrams tank and run it over plates 50 times to make sure the road was going to be okay. That seems like that was a pretty fun assignment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we want to display, we want to showcase our tanks, we want to show the American soldier, but we were very cognizant of what could happen. I think we went to great lengths to actually ensure that we are protecting the cities of Washington, D.C., while still giving the people, the American people, a great show.
First used in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the M119 howitzer brought precision firepower to the front lines. Lighter and more mobile than larger artillery, it was built for the infantry brigade, able to fire high into the air or directly at the target depending on the mission. Whether used in battery formation or as a standalone support weapon, the M119 delivered reliable, responsible fire when it mattered most. Still in service today, including on the front lines in Ukraine, it remains a trusted part of the Army's arsenal. Special thanks to our sponsor, UFC.
looking now at the global war on terror. Before that, the Gulf War, which ended, of course, in 1991. It was 10 years later that the U.S. was attacked on 9/11, and that set off 2+ decades of war for the U.S. Army. Obviously, a lot of developments, a lot of different hardware, a lot of different battles in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And a gentleman who would know firsthand about that, Command Sergeant Major Alex Caprati, can tell us a little bit about some of that hardware, Sergeant Major. What have we been seeing?
So what we're looking at right now, you're looking at a Stryker vehicle. It's an 8-wheel, lightly armored vehicle. It has a crew of 3. And is able to carry up to 11 soldiers in its back, with fully combat load. There's so many different variations to this vehicle. You have, we're seeing a few of them right now. You have a just infantry carry vehicle. You can actually put a mortar system inside of it. You can actually use it as a medevac vehicle as well. And there's different variants that allow commanders to actually communicate a lot easier in the battlefield.
We've seen soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division taking part in this part of the raid, or this part of the parade, rather, based in upstate New York at Fort Drum. More than 20 deployments for the 10th Mountain to both Iraq and Afghanistan over the years.
And what we haven't seen so far, both for the global war on terror and for the modern era, which I think these two sections are kind of blending into as we go into the final kind of 2 decades to present day, is a massive air parade of all of the Army's air assets, starting with the 160th Special Air Operations Commands, the Night Stalkers. Talk to me a little bit about their role in the days literally right after September 11th attacks and what they were able to accomplish by getting our soldiers into Afghanistan.
No, absolutely. I was very fortunate enough to actually train with the Night Stalkers, incredible pilots. I think we saw so many different aircraft in display today, the Little Bird, their DAPS systems, MH-47s, the MH-60s, highly trained. They own the night. And I was fortunate enough to be in some pretty tough places. And you can always count on Night Stalkers to always find the X and always put you in the right spot and always pick you up in the right place when the time was called. So we're hoping to see, I hope it was not a weather decision that was made, but hopefully we can still see them flying today.
We're expecting right now to see almost 50 helicopters flying directly over these troops, but weather's been an issue all day long today, and the ceiling, you see those low-level clouds, and you see kind of the fog. That might have been a factor in the reason why we're not seeing them right now. But the 160th, they had a role in dropping off the horse soldiers and attacking the Taliban. Tell us a little bit about that mission and what happened there.
I will tell you, when I say that you can bring them in at any time, anywhere, we find ourselves in some bad valleys there when we actually had them come in with no other formation would dare fly in the middle of an intense firefight, risking themselves, risking the aircraft, which is significant in how much some of those airframes cost, to actually put fire on the enemy, pick us up and take us off to the next objective. They're incredible. I mean, I'm not lost for words with some of the things that I've managed to see those people do with those helicopters.
What are some of the vehicles we're looking at now?
We're still seeing some Strykers right now. I'm trying to see what kind of variant this is. Hopefully they'll zoom out here in a second. We're still seeing some of the regular Strykers. So you'll see these Strykers can also be mounted by numerous amount of things. You have Mark 19s, which are 40 millimeter rounds. You have your 50 cal, your 240s that can be mounted on top as well. You have a 30 millimeter round that can be mounted on top, and of course you have your TOW missile that can be mounted there as well. And what we're seeing right now is still Strykers with a 50 cal. That one happens to have a 50 cal mounted on it right now.
And the camera is actually cutting to Senator Joni Ernst, who herself is a military veteran. One of the things we hadn't said about the Abrams tanks before is that while they were crawling along at maybe 3 miles an hour, those things can actually haul. How fast can they go?
Gosh, I want to say close to 42 miles an hour, if I'm not mistaken. You got to look at my map. Maybe you know the better answer.
pretty sure no one was going to allow them to go 42 miles an hour across
No,
the
not at all.
today.
Not at all. Not today.
So we have gone through the wars of the U.S. Army history, from the Revolution through the Civil War, both world wars, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, global war on terrorism encompassing both Iraq and Afghanistan. What we'll be seeing next is what they're calling the modern day part of the parade. It is all the hardware, all the aviation that the Army is counting on for any near-term conflict with an adversary. So we'll see the armor, we'll see the artillery, we'll see the helicopters. We'll even get to see apparently a HIMARS battery, which perhaps even casual news readers have heard a lot about over the last, let's say, year and a half because of Ukraine, Tar.
That is that high mobility rocket launcher system that Ukraine has just coveted and has been so vital in its ability to fight back against Russia's invasion that started in 2022. The HIMARS system is basically a mobile system, and they actually trained on it here in the U.S. and then they trained on it again overseas and learned how to be able to fire and move and get it out of the way. Can you talk a little bit about what we've been able to do for Ukraine with this system?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is that interoperability that we have in training them to actually be able to defend themselves. That has been a critical weapon system for them in their, as you said earlier on, their ability to fire and move and not become a fixed target. As you know, they've had many casualties due to artillery and the massive artillery that they receive. This allows them to fire a pinpoint shot and then get up and move away before the enemy is able to actually cue in on them.
What's interesting, too, is that while this is the modern era and we are seeing weapon systems that have played vital roles in the war on terror for the last 20 years, the Army is in the middle of a massive transformation in how it's thinking about war, in the systems it might be chasing after, especially as we've seen kind of the introduction of drones and we've seen them play such an important role in Ukraine. Can you talk a little bit about how the Army of the future is thinking and how it's adjusting and the kind of weapon systems it's looking for?
Absolutely. That's a big change the Army is making right now. Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff habitually talk about it. The Army Transformation Initiative is really creating or acquiring war-winning capabilities faster. That's, in its essence, is get the right things in the hands of soldiers much faster than we have been doing it forever, right? Looking at force structure, looking at what are some of those threats that we're going to be facing in the future, and then look at what we have now, and then training and building our force for the future fight. That is significantly the biggest thing, is how do we bring AI, how do we bring technology and embed it into everything we do to make our processes faster and make our people more lethal.
What are some of the things we're learning from how we've seen drones be employed? And do you still need the Abrams tanks? Do you still need the Bradley fighting vehicle, or do they become more vulnerable? Do you have to change how you use them?
Oh, I mean, modern warfare changes all the time. The UAS systems, now you have ubiquitous surveillance, constantly. You have to be aware of that. But there's a lot of changes at the ATI. We're looking at systems that we're phasing out. AH-64 Delta model, for example. We're looking at, different loitering munitions that have further range. Is how do we make things better? How do we take the things now that are obsolete and make better programs?
As we see more of this armor go by, the presidential makers and the Bradleys and everything else, and you see it there, the smiles and the waves. Can you put into words maybe what it might mean for some of these young soldiers to be taking part in this and being able to ride by and wave at it and salute and have a salute returned?
I'm defending my nation. I'm an American soldier. This is what I do. And, I get goosebumps just thinking about that right now. And the American people is watching. This is your Army. And all that hard work and all the dedication and discipline that goes into making ready soldiers is being displayed in front of us right now. So I think pride is the number one thing I would feel inside of me. And
mentally, for these soldiers who are manning the old equipment, it's one thing to be in the Bradleys or to be in the Abrams, but for those who are maybe in the Sherman or flying the Hueys that we still hope to see that we did not see,
or the Humvees,
for that matter, what kind of preparation went into that? Like, is there that little bit of of nerve, would you think? Like, okay, I've now got to drive a 80-year-old weapons system and wave to the President of the United States.
Well, that's right. It's not like riding a bicycle, right? There's a lot of training that went into this, much like we approach training with safety and readiness in mind at all times. These are frames that took many hours to actually master to ensure that, one, we don't damage equipment, and two, we safely maneuver them across.
More than an hour now into this parade marking the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. Still more to come, assuming the weather can hold off.
Battle-ready and nimble makes transportation for the U.S. Army a very vital element. Spread across the parade today, numerous fighting vehicles, some designed for very specific functions and others for flexibility, but they all must be maintained. With over 200,000 trucks alone, wheeled vehicle mechanisms ensure that the fleet of vehicles are ready, and these mechanics get the job done. This convoy starts with the M777, a lightweight howitzer. These lightweight howitzers may not look particularly lightweight, but are made from titanium. They are 7,000 pounds lighter than their predecessor, the old M198. Used by the Army since 2005, the M777 is currently being used in Ukraine. Weighing only 4,700 pounds, the M119 howitzer is smaller and is used by infantry brigades, particularly for air assault missions. It was first used in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm in 1991 and is also seeing active use in Ukraine. The 7th Infantry Division, stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord, has been seeing continuous combat action ever since activation in World War I. From Europe to the Aleutian Islands, Japan, Korea, Afghanistan, and the Pacific, the Bayonet Division boasts a proud history of answering the call of its motto, "Trust in me," with resolute dedication. Sent to deployments and conflicts around the globe since it was founded, the division returned to Fort Lewis in 1971, its first time on American soil since 1934. The 7th Division, originally called the Hourglass Division due to their patch design, gained the nickname Bayonet Division during their deployment to Korea in June of 1950. At Incheon Landing during the liberation of Seoul, they were credited with plunging the bayonet into the heart of the enemy, with 13 members of the division receiving the Medal of Honor. The 7th enables and sustains the combat readiness of 2 Stryker Brigade combat teams and a Combat Aviation Brigade. We are continuously transforming. Army careers span the spectrum from attorneys to astronauts and mechanics to engineers. The Army's greatest asset is our people, the finest men and women our great nation has to offer, with a myriad of talents that make us stronger. Aside from its people, the Army's next greatest asset is its technology and equipment. Coming up next, these vehicles offer a glimpse of what the Army employs for readiness and battle. The portable howitzers and the portable Abrams tank were used extensively in the Gulf War, along with Bradley tanks and the infantry squad vehicle. The ISB provides enhanced tactical mobility of an infantry brigade combat team. This allows commanders greater freedom of movement and action. The ISB provides the warfighter with increased flexibility to ensure infantry units maintain momentum to achieve mission success. When duty calls, U.S. Army soldiers don't just answer, they lead. From Fort Bragg, witness a powerful demonstration of strength, purpose, and the unmatched capability of today's Army. Joint Base Elmendorf, Richardson, Alaska is the home to America's Arctic Angels, who execute expeditionary operations worldwide, conduct multi-domain operations in the Indo-Pacific Theater and the Arctic, and on order decisively defeat any adversary in extreme cold weather, mountainous and high-latitude environments through large-scale combat operations. The Angels are the Army's only Arctic division. Masters of Arctic warfare, the 11th serves worldwide in all climates. Established in November of 1942, the Angels of the 11th Airborne Division led the way in the Philippines during World War II and spearheaded an amphibious invasion of Luzon and distinguished themselves during the liberation of Manila. After periods spent inactive and stationed in Germany from 1963 to 65, the division operated as the 11th Air Assault Division with the mission of testing and refining the Army's helicopter-centric air mobility doctrine. Activated once again in June of 2022, they remain dedicated to defending America's interests throughout the Arctic, in Alaska, and beyond. The 11th Airborne Division, America's Arctic Angels. Requiring ongoing maintenance in the field and on base because nothing happens until something moves, wheeled vehicle mechanics supervise and perform maintenance, repair, and recovery operations on vehicles that serve the Army in a variety of mission-critical roles. Included in the array of mobile artillery such as Paladins and the Abrams tank is the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle known as the JLTV. It's highly adaptable, providing protected and sustained mobility for personnel and payloads. The JLTV is known for its off-road capability while providing armor against small arms and improvised explosive devices. The JLTV, right there.
cry.
We just saw Vice President Vance looking like he's having a good time, and now a thumbs up from the Secretary of Defense as the Army parade rolls on down Constitution Avenue here in Washington. I'm Sagar Meghani. This is Tara Kopp. We have Command Sergeant Major Alex Prati joining us here as well. The weather has largely been better than people expected at this point. We have seen some delays in what we expected to be some aircraft flights, specifically a lot of helicopters that should have been in the air several minutes ago that we have yet to see. Still thunderstorms predicted here in Washington, still a flood threat, still a lightning threat. So it's unclear how all of that may play out, how it may affect President Trump's remarks later, fireworks, concert. We still have a ways to go. But Sergeant Major, give us a sense of what we're seeing now as the president stands and salutes once again.
Well, I think we're finishing up the modern era right now. What we're hoping to see is potentially, we spoke briefly about the Night Stalkers and some of the aircraft and some of the things they're able to do. And as we finish up right now this parade, what we have at the very end is we have a lot of the service, the academies. We have BMI, we have the Citadel, we have the Aggies, Texas A&M. We have current soldiers going through the Army. That's going to be the future of our Army, and I'm truly excited to see them be part of this incredible parade.
What is it that you, as a career soldier who's risen to the top of his field, wants kids, maybe young kids, maybe kids younger than 10, or maybe middle school or high school kids, what would you like them to walk away from either the mall, where they got to see this in person, or watching here or on TV or wherever? What do you hope this did to them in terms of how the Army is presented?
Well, first and foremost,
Still there, and maybe it starts a conversation about military service.
and one of the things I want to add, I don't want to be confused. We've talked about changes from the Revolutionary War, and we're all mesmerized by all these different platforms we're seeing. But at the end of the day, precision fire missiles or the next gen weapon, there's a soldier at the end that's going to make the decision to pull that trigger. And that is our most valuable asset, is the American soldier. And I'm so proud to have this opportunity to actually watch them walk and march in our nation's capital today.
We're going to see cadets, as you mentioned, both from Texas A&M, VMI, the Citadel. We're going to see new enlistees who are in basic training, and then we're going to see new recruits or soldiers re-enlisting. And those, as they go by that presidential reviewing stand, they will raise their right arms, and they will be sworn in by the commander-in-chief as they drive by. That has to be another thrill for some of these young soldiers or soon-to-be soldiers.
It's not every day you get sworn into service by the President of the United States.
Exactly. I remember early on in my days of career in the Pentagon being at an event somewhere on the mall, and General Dick Cody, who was then the Vice Chief of Staff, was there to swear in a group, and they...
You think about it now, we have an Air Force and a Marine Corps and a Navy and a Space Force, but the Army really started a lot of this stuff. The Army had the first submarine. It was a single-person submarine called the Turtle, and it only went submerged 3 times. It didn't do anything it was supposed to do. It was supposed to be able to attach bombs to ships, but it was an Army vessel. The Army had the Army Air Corps, and it had the Army Air Forces, and it had the first fixed-wing aircraft in war. So even though you are now known more as a ground force with helicopters and combined air-ground, you've really kind of been all over the place.
You've spearheaded a lot of the initiatives that we have right now, technologically. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's watch some more of this armor roll by, and we will get to watching some recruits get sworn in, and if the weather holds, eventually some helicopters and some fireworks. Stay with us.
1st Mobile Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, Bastogne. They are showcasing the Army's Transformation in Contact Initiative, a program that allows the Army to rapidly test, evaluate, and equip our soldiers with the newest technologies. Modern, mobile, and mission-ready, the Bastogne Brigade continues to adapt to new threats while staying rooted in the fierce resilience that defined its birth. They are carrying the next-generation squad weapons, the XM7 and XM250, both equipped with the XM157 optic. The vehicles are the infantry squad vehicle, a new mobility asset that can rapidly move through most terrain types. The trailer is the S-MET, and it's capable of carrying heavy loads under its own power through restrictive terrain. This platoon is equipped with 3 types of small unmanned aerial systems. They are the Ghost X, located on the S-MET, the C-100, and right above us there, the X-10D, which are flying above the formation right now. Fighting vehicle has proved itself to be lethal and survivable in multiple theaters since it first fielded back in the 1980s. Designed as a troop transport tank killer and to match speed with an Abrams tank, the Bradley is a fierce fighting machine. The Bradley accompanies American troops often with the M1A1 Abrams tank, nicknamed the Beast and Whispering Death because of its firepower, accuracy while moving, and its stealth. Together, they offer mobility and firepower, a fearsome combination. As the oldest continuously serving Army band and the oldest unit at West Point, this is the United States Military Academy Band, ladies and gentlemen. The West Point Band traces its history to a single drummer and fifer appointed by George Washington during the American Revolution. Over the next 2 centuries, this band evolved into one of the most capable and versatile performing groups in the world. One of the most prestigious institutions in the world where leadership is forged and duty becomes destiny, this is West Point, where Army leaders are made. With the motto of duty, honor, and country, West Point trains the best and brightest to serve their country as Army officers. Founded back in 1802 by President Thomas Jefferson, West Point is the home of the Long Gray Line, a legacy of courage and excellence that includes 77 Medal of Honor recipients, 2 U.S. presidents, Grant and Eisenhower, and numerous generals, including John J. Pershing, Douglas MacArthur, and Norman Schwarzkopf. Upon entering the United States Army, all recruits undergo initial entry training, a highly intense and a challenging training period aimed at developing a soldier's physical and mental toughness, instill discipline, train them in essential combat skills, and foster teamwork. IET transforms civilians into soldiers based on the 7 core Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. The Virginia Military Institute, on a mission to produce citizen soldiers, men and women educated for civilian life, prepared to serve their country in the armed forces. VMI counts a Nobel Prize winner, 11 Rhodes Scholars, generals, 7 Medal of Honor recipients, and a Pulitzer Prize winner among its graduates. As one of the nation's senior military colleges, students at Virginia Military Institute can participate in Army ROTC or the Corps of Cadets. While cadets in the Corps can serve in any branch of the United States military or pursue other careers, those in Army ROTC earn their commission as officers, ready to serve on active duty in the National Guard or Army Reserve. Each year, the Army Senior ROTC Blue Ridge Battalion commissions approximately 130 second lieutenants, ensuring that excellence in leadership continues in generations to come. The Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, offers students the opportunity to participate in Army ROTC or the Historic Corps of Cadets. Founded in 1842, the Citadel is the 3rd oldest of the senior military colleges and is known for its Corps of Cadets living and studying under a classical military system that makes leadership and character development essential. While military service is not required in graduation, more than 120 students earn their commission each year through the Army Senior ROTC Palmetto Battalion, playing a vital role in shaping the future. As one of the nation's senior military colleges, Texas A&M University is home to both Army ROTC and the renowned Corps of Cadets. The Corps of Cadets' central purposes has remained building individuals that exemplify respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, and selfless service. Students at the university who participate in the Army ROTC earn their commission as officers ready to serve on active duty in the National Guard or Army Reserve. Each year, the Army Senior ROTC Warrior Training Battalion at Texas A&M proudly commissions more than 90 second lieutenants and is honored to shape the future leaders of the U.S. Army. In a powerful display of commitment, these future soldiers will raise their right hand and take an oath of enlistment, pledging to serve our nation. This joint formation is proudly led by the Joint Task Force, National Capital Region, and the Military District of Washington Retention Team. Shaping tomorrow's Army, West Point's most inspiring cadets remind us that America's future is courageous and in capable hands.
Praise! Mr. President, First Sergeant Norton reporting for duty, sir. Ready to commence the ceremony as directed.
I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Congratulations, congratulations. Welcome to the United States Army and have a great life. Thank you very much. Have a great life. Thank you.